The RCMP are now considering Cam McLeod and Briar Schmigelski as suspects.
Thought missing, now deemed murder suspects. A major twist today in the mysterious murders and disappearances in northern British Columbia. Well, they are childhood friends and now they are fugitives, considered armed and dangerous. The RCMP today linking that pair to 3 deaths. They believe the two have fled BC and appear to be heading east. The two were last spotted in Saskatchewan, and in the last few minutes, the RCMP in Manitoba say they could be in that province. Renee Filipponi takes us through today's incredible turn in the case.
These are images of the pair captured on surveillance video recently. 19-year-old Cam McLeod and 18-year-old Briar Schmigelski were spotted in Saskatchewan and are now the focus of a national manhunt.
Given these latest developments, Cam and Briar are no longer considered missing. The RCMP are now considering Cam McLeod and Briar Schmigelski as suspects in the Dease Lake suspicious death and the double homicide of Lucas Fowler and China Dease.
These are some of the final moments for Australian Lucas Fowler and American China Dease. Security video from a gas station. The couple were on a road trip when they were shot and killed south of Laird Hot Springs. Their van was found not far from their bodies along the Alaska Highway in northeast BC. About 500 kilometers away, further west near Dease Lake, another body. This unknown man was found dead at a pullout on the highway. A truck was burning not far away, a truck driven by McLeod and Schmigelski. Friends say the pair from Port Alberni were headed to Whitehorse to look for work. For days they were listed as missing, and communities in northern BC had been on edge, worried about a potential killer on the loose. Everything changed when the pair was spotted yesterday. At today's news conference, the RCMP were pressed on why it took so long to notify the public.
This is a fast-moving investigation and is compounded by several factors, which include the vastness of the North, the fact that individuals have made some effort to move out of jurisdictions. All those things contribute to our ability to quickly identify additional information or additional facts.
RCMP have contacted police across the country in an effort to locate the teens. They are considered armed and dangerous, and the public are being warned not to approach them, but if they spot the pair, to call 911 immediately. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Before the now wanted men left BC, they stopped into a souvenir shop. CBC News reached the owner of the Jade City store just north of Dease Lake to talk about that visit earlier this month and her feelings on today's twist.
The fact that the two boys were here and we have them on surveillance is a little unnerving for me and the community and my staff. They were in the store shopping. We have a Jade store and we offer free coffee. And the boys came in for free coffee. I wasn't in the store when they showed up, but right away when the girls saw them on TV, they recognized them. I don't know how I feel. We've just heard the news that these boys that we were so concerned about are now suspects. So now we've gone from search and rescue and worrying that they were victims to now being suspects. I think it's going to take us some time to be able to accept this and all this stuff that's going on. Like they say, it is a fast-moving investigation. Every day seems to be something new.
And one of the victims in this case, Lucas Fowler, is from Australia. His father is now in BC helping with the case, and it's one that crosses into his professional life. Stephen Fowler is actually a police officer, and yesterday he spoke about his son and his son's girlfriend who were killed.
We are just distraught. This has really torn two families apart. Our son Lucas was having the time of his life travelling the world. He met a beautiful young lady and they teamed up. They were a great pair and they fell in love. It's a love story that's ended tragically. It really is. It's the worst ever love story because we now have two young people who had everything ahead of them, tragically murdered.
And you can track the very latest on this ever-changing story online. Just head to cbcnews.ca or download the CBC News app.
I'm Natalie Nanowski. Promoters are renting out homes like these on Airbnb to throw massive parties. I'll have more on this story, including how communities are reacting. That's coming up.
Well, residents of a neighborhood near Black Creek in Weston say they've had enough after 2 floods damaged their homes in less than a year. Now they're demanding the city spend money to fix the area's sewer systems. As Greg Ross tells us, one of those residents had contractors in his house trying to fix the previous damage when the latest flood hit last week.
This is what Cordella Avenue looked like last Wednesday morning when a storm dumped more than 60 millimeters of rain on the city.
Every time you see those dark clouds roll in, you get nervous.
We definitely get nervous.
Ricardo Mota lives on Cordella Avenue. He says every time there's a storm, all of the water flows directly towards his house as well as some of his neighbors.
It's coming right into our basement. It goes right down this driveway. A lot of times we have to fight the water as much as possible, try and create a barricade.
Last week, about 30 centimeters of water ended up in his garage. Some seeped into his basement. Coincidentally, there were contractors there at the time repairing damage from a much bigger flood last August.
Last summer was the worst that you'd ever seen it.
That I've experienced, yes.
How bad was it?
It got to 5 feet of sewage.
In your basement?
In my basement.
This is a picture Mota took of the murky water in his basement, and this is what it looked like out on the street. Mota and his family were forced to leave their home for 2 months while crews cleaned up the mess.
But you can still see the water line here from 2018.
Yes, that's correct.
Mota submitted a claim to the city, hoping they would take responsibility for the damage, seeing as it was the result of an overflow of the city's drainage and sewer system in the area. But the claim was rejected by the city insurance adjuster. In a letter to Mota, they said the city's sewers were designed and installed in accordance with the engineering standards prevailing at the time they were installed and have been properly maintained.
I don't blame the residents for being angry. I'm angry as well.
Ward 5 City Councilor Francis Nunziata says there was a similar flood on Cordella Avenue 6 years ago.
When it happened in 2013, the city did a study.
The Toronto and Region Conservation Authority also did their own environmental assessment at the time, looking at areas affected by flooding from nearby Black Creek, including Cordella Avenue. The TRCA made recommendations for modifications to the infrastructure along Black Creek, including berms, crossings, and this channel that runs behind Cordella Avenue. These modifications were never implemented.
The only way you're going to solve the flooding issue permanently is that you need to do that infrastructure work.
But the TRCA has re-examined their 2014 study and now says those modifications would not address the highest risk areas like Cordella Avenue. They have since launched a feasibility study looking at the most risky areas and solutions. In the meantime, Mota and his neighbors have been forced to take matters into their own hands.
We understand as a neighborhood that we have to fight this.
The TRCA feasibility study is expected to be completed in March of 2020. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
It's been called the crown jewel in the province's multi-billion-dollar transit expansion, that new relief line running through the heart of Toronto. But there are concerns tonight that what the province wants is going to take longer to build and follow a different route than the relief line already planned by the city. Our Lorenda Redikoff joins us now live from Union Station. Lorenda, that's one of the stations that they want to alleviate overcrowding at.
That's right, and Mike, behind me and all around me, that daily scramble is on by commuters. They're going to or from incredibly crowded subway trains. And today, the Toronto Star obtained a confidential document laying out plans by the province for its proposed subway expansion. It calls it the Ontario line, and it takes over a previous plan that the city had. Now, I did talk to some transit riders, and they told me they just want a subway system that works.
Near Yonge and Bloor, one of the busy stations, a new subway line is set to relieve congestion from frustration at current service and the various plans from different governments.
I've taken the TTC all my life, and the service just gets worse all the time. And they should have started the relief line years ago.
They don't have to fight. They have to fix the city. It's difficult to get anywhere. You can't park. You can't get nowhere. Yeah. So they can't keep moving this. It's just too long. It's overdue.
The city's relief line plan went from Osgood Station, ending at Pape. The province's proposal is for a much longer line, starting near the exhibition, traveling farther south, and continuing north to the Science Centre. According to the Toronto Star, the route would follow less than 3 kilometres of the relief line. The city councillor who's on the TTC board feels it's a waste of time and money.
It's been very frustrating for all of us councillors down here. And now the fact that even the work that's been done to date, they're going to be using less than half of it. I mean, it really is a mess.
He also doesn't see how all that work can be ready by the province's timeline. 2027, more than 15 kilometres of track with above and below ground sections. The mayor says city staff is going over the plan.
Believe you me, the one thing that I'll be looking for is not just anybody's estimated timetable, but I'll be looking for officials and experts to say, yes, that timetable is reasonable, because delay is the greatest enemy we have right now in terms of addressing some of the congestion and environmental and other problems.
Ontario's transportation minister confirmed the initial business case is in. Federal Liberal Adam Vaughan fired back. Your lines on either map cannot be seriously costed. All we have received in Ottawa is a crude map and guesstimates on cost. The NDP is insisting on seeing the documents.
I have a hard time believing that he can build double the track for a cheaper amount of money in less time. I have a very hard time believing that. He needs to present his plan with all the information so that we can have a cold, hard look at that.
Now, the NDP also sees this as similar to the mid-90s, and that was when the provincial government came in and there was a subway going along Eglinton that was already started, already partially dug. Well, the province then came in and actually filled it back in. So it sees that as similar here. Now, we did speak today with the office of the transportation minister, and they say that with these plans, they will be publicized soon, though they couldn't give us a date. And they said that in fall, this will all be the series of public consultations. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Lorinda. We'll look for those details. This weekend will mark 6 years since Sammy Yatim was shot and killed while on a streetcar, and today a disciplinary tribunal withdrew the charge against a Toronto police officer who tased the dying teenager. Sergeant Dushan Privaka used his stun gun on Sammy Yatim after he was shot on a streetcar. Another officer, James Forsillo, was convicted of attempted murder in that case. Linda Ward has more.
Well, Sergeant Dusan Pravika was not in the tribunal today. He was represented by his lawyer for the brief hearing. The tribunal heard that the charge of unlawful and unnecessary exercise of authority had been withdrawn, quote, resolved by alternative means amenable to both parties. Now, the charge stems from the July 2013 tasering of 18-year-old Sammy Yatim aboard a Toronto streetcar as he lay on the ground of the streetcar dying. He had been shot multiple times by Officer James Forsillo, who's now serving time in his death. But while he lay there after being shot, Sergeant Pravika tasered him. Testifying in Forsillo's trial, he said that he was still clutching the knife that he had on board that streetcar, and he thought that he was going to get up. Now, Yatim's family issued a complaint to an independent police watchdog who found that he used unnecessary force and acted in haste, and so he was charged. Today, the tribunal heard that earlier this month, Sergeant Pravika and Sammy Yatim's father, Nabil, had a meeting in which Nabil Yatim was able to air his views. He said that he was satisfied with that meeting, and so the charge was withdrawn. The lawyer for Sergeant Pravika said that he was only acting according to his police training and police policies and willingly entered into mediation. The lawyer for the Yatim family says that now they will move forward in trying to further the cause of changing police protocol for use of force as they mark a grim milestone. This Saturday marks the 6-year anniversary of Sammy Yatim's death. Linda Ward, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, have you been jolted awake by an Amber Alert on your cell phone? Well, most Canadians feel it's a worthwhile inconvenience, but others call 911 and complain. Well, now thousands of Canadians have had enough of people whining about Amber Alerts. An online petition is asking that fines be implemented against people who call 911 to complain about the notifications waking them up in the middle of the night. It hopes the fines will help curb complainers from tying up police resources. This comes as police say they've received numerous calls from people venting their frustrations following recent Amber Alerts in Ontario. I just checked so far, just over 69,000 people have signed the petition. Colette Kennedy joins us now with her look at the forecast. No complaints about this weather forecast, Colette.
Yeah, I think for many people, hey, this is more like it, right? What you were hoping for when it was so hot and so humid. As I mention all the time, happen to like that kind of weather, but I also understand this makes it easier to get outdoors and get some things done and, hey, just walking around at times too. I have to tell you, we've got a few days that are going to be nice like this, really comfortable, and then things are going to start to change. That's why I'm sort of starting here with this national perspective with some of the temperatures, because I just want to show you what's happening into the central and eastern prairies. Winnipeg, 31 degrees for tomorrow. That's where some of the core heat is. And by the way, into Thunder Bay, 29 on Wednesday as well. What starts to happen for us as we go towards Thursday, so tomorrow's still pretty comfortable. Thursday, temperature picks up a little bit. The humidity won't be bad, so it's a nice day on Thursday as well. We get towards Friday, however, and some of that warmer air pushes into southern Ontario. And as it does, we'll see those temperatures first in Windsor going to 30 degrees. That's on Friday. Toronto will be up there at 30 degrees as we go into the weekend. But not only that, we're going to start to feel like we're in the mid-30s as the humidity will be coming back. So enjoy the next few days as it's going to be much more temperate. 25 the current temperature, and really that's how it feels out there. Still the slimmest chance for the next hour or two we could see a pop-up shower, but most of that activity well back towards southwestern Ontario. You see all the lightning strikes there as well. Really, we're talking about mostly clear conditions overnight tonight and through the day tomorrow. Just a few clouds into the afternoon, so 15-year overnight low and a lovely 26 degrees tomorrow afternoon, Mike.
Looking wonderful. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
These are my coworkers. Jobs, please. What if somebody calls the cops? And says what? I spent $5,000 at a strip club. Send help.
So what has strippers taking on brokers, the origin story of the Joker, a whodunit mystery, and a woman who changed history. The major film screening at TIFF this year, of course. We'll break them all down next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Toronto's newest superhero is using his powers for something else tonight, getting people to see a film starring his new Marvel co-star, Awkwafina. Kim's Convenience actor Simu Liu is renting out a theater at Toronto's Varsity Cinemas tonight, allowing people to view The Farewell for free. Liu made history earlier this week when he was cast as Shang-Chi, Marvel's newest superhero of Chinese descent. Now, his soon-to-be co-star Awkwafina also stars in The Farewell. The movie follows a woman who travels with her family to China after they learned their grandmother has only a short time left to live. But the matriarch isn't aware that she's sick. Now, originally, Liu tweeted out he had 100 tickets to give away, but he recently clarified that the number has grown to 500. If you're planning to attend, Liu says to look for his team dressed in black T-shirts and to say you are there for the Gold Open. The screening starts at 9:30 p.m., but be sure to get there early as tickets will be available on a first-come, first-served basis.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Please won't you be my neighbor?
That is Tom Hanks absolutely nailing the beloved children's TV personality, Mr. Rogers, in the biopic It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. That is just one of the films announced for this year's Toronto International Film Festival. Yelena Adzik joins us now with all the highlights.
I can't stop smiling at that.
What a great,
Clint.
yeah.
It's so good.
Crying or smiling, one of the two.
One or the other.
Let's talk about the star power we can expect this year.
Okay, so Mike, listen, we already know that the opening night film, they announced that earlier, it's a documentary on Robbie Robertson. Okay, so let's move on to some of the big A-list kind of Hollywood stars that you're thinking of. I'm going to give you a listen right now to Cameron. This is artistic director and co-head of TIFF, and Cameron Bailey talks a little bit more about that star power.
Renee Zellweger is phenomenal as Judy Garland in Judy. And I think that's a performance everybody's going to be paying attention to. Same with both of the leads in Ford vs. Ferrari. Christian Bale and Matt Damon are both terrific. But there are others as well. Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx in Just Mercy. Meryl Streep in The Laundromat. There's lots of those great performances.
A lot of name dropping going on there. Okay, so he mentioned Christian Bale, Matt Damon. Let me give you a look at that film because this is one that is Ford versus Ferrari, based on the lives of American car designer Carroll Shelby and driver Ken Miles. It looks like it's got a lot of action and a lot of drama. And then another one too, Knives Out. This is a classic whodunit scenario. In this case, we've got a renowned crime novelist played by Canadian Christopher Plummer. Well, he's found dead. That's not a spoiler alert. You find out early on. And we've got this really debonair detective. He's played by Daniel Craig. He's called in to investigate. So have a listen to Daniel Craig's voice as we set this up.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to request that you all stay until the investigation is completed.
What? Can we ask why? Has something changed?
No.
No, it hasn't changed, or no, we can't ask.
I love Toni Collette in anything she does. Yeah, and then one other one just to mention, Joker. Joker is, you'd probably know a little bit about this backstory, maybe a little. This is really a reimagining of the backstory of the classic evil comic book character. We've got Joaquin Phoenix in there, Robert De Niro. So again, more big names we know will be coming to Toronto.
So some fiction there, but a number of these stories, as you were talking earlier on, if there's a theme that could be based on people from real life, what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, no, for sure. A lot of these gritty stories, they have to do often with a focus on women. And that makes a lot of sense because what they've tried to do, this is the first year they've done it, is achieve parity when it comes to the programming committee, 50% women. I'm going to give you a listen right now to a woman who is the senior director of TIFF. Her name is Diana Sanchez.
50% of our galas are directed or co-directed by women, but you know, we have a lot to go still. We're still making a lot of announcements.
Okay, so one of the announcements we know, Judy Garland, the life of her, it's a performer. She's troubled. She struggles with addiction. And that is Renee Zellweger that you're seeing in that role. And then another one, Hustlers. This stars Jennifer Lopez, Cardi B. They are nightclub dancers and they seek revenge against their Wall Street clients. I've got a little bit of Jennifer Lopez to show you right now.
These Wall Street guys, you see what they did to this country? They stole from everybody. Hardworking people lost everything. And not one of these douchebags went to jail. The game is rigged, and it does not reward people who play by the rules. Then it's like robbing a bank, except you get the keys. Are you in?
So that looks like it's an interesting one. And then there are some that are more from a historical perspective and they're more serious in tone. Cassie Lemon has a Harriet Tubman biopic. And this is just, of course, the freedom fighter for civil rights. And it really looks set to be very powerful. Have a listen to that one.
I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but you have made it 100 miles to freedom all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Harriet Tubman.
Oh, that one gives you a little bit of goosebumps. The closing night film is Rosamund Pike. She stars as Nobel Prize winning scientist Marie Curie, very fittingly called Radioactive. So there's just so much to look forward to, right? Heavy hitting there.
Big name films, big name names coming to this
exactly,
as well.
Yeah, so September 5th to the 15th, those are the dates. And what I really like about this is all of those films I mentioned, whether you're at the festival or not, they're going to be hitting theaters right across the city shortly thereafter.
Okay, thanks a lot, Yelena.
Yeah, you got it, Mike.
You could hear the loud amplified system. They would actually bring a system. I would see them bringing it out from the car, and they would blast it really loud.
Advertised like a club event, a Toronto promoter is using homes like these on quiet streets to throw big bashes. What neighbors in the city have to say about it, coming up next. Residents in the Bayview and Finch area say that a home on their usually quiet tree-lined street has recently become the scene of some wild parties. It's all become too much for the neighbors, and as Natalie Nanowski tells us, the man who organized one of the parties is also behind something similar in another part of the city.
This isn't your neighbor's pool party. It was advertised on Instagram like an event at a club, open to everyone. Jack Dupuis snapped the video before things got out of hand.
So 200 plus people, cars parked, jammed, people coming through this neighborhood to get to the party because they could hear the noise.
It's not the first time this has happened on this quiet residential street. The home was listed on Airbnb, and neighbors say it was rented out for huge parties that were often open to the public.
Some nights it's really, really bad.
Like you can feel the whole house vibrating.
Cavell King lives 2 doors down from the vacant North York home. She says people were spilling out on the street during the July 3rd party that was put on by this Toronto promoter.
The next morning, I had literally cleaned up the garbage on the street. I found liquor bottles and beer bottles and air bombs. So basically, they were setting off firecrackers and scaring like everyone.
We contacted the promoter of the July 3rd party, and we haven't heard back.
This is not the only home this promoter has rented out. He rented out another home on Airbnb just 3 days later in Etobicoke to throw another huge party.
Yeah, it was pretty loud. Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary, but yeah, loud enough.
Neighbors here say they didn't call the police. This party was also advertised on Instagram as an event for people over 17 with an entrance fee. The city says these types of parties aren't allowed in residential zones, and it's looking into complaints against the North York property. We contacted that owner to ask about her listing on Airbnb.
I'm just wondering, is the home still currently being rented out for parties?
No more, ever.
No more.
Airbnb says it also removed that listing, but the one in Etobicoke is still active. The company goes on to say that it's working with the city to ensure fair regulations, but people in these communities say those can't come fast enough. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
And remember, if you have a story you'd like us to look into, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. And we are learning tonight that another person recently went missing from the Center for Addiction and Mental Health downtown. In this latest case, the man was found within hours. But it comes after another man who was found not criminally responsible for killing his roommate fled the country while on an unaccompanied pass from CAMH. Taylor Simmons has the story.
27-year-old Ahmed Sualam went missing at 10:30 a.m. yesterday from the area around CAMH.
Police started an investigation, and through that investigation and their leads, they realized that there was a public safety issue, which is when we notified the public.
Documents from the Ontario Review Board show Sualam was found not criminally responsible for 5 counts of armed robbery and theft in 2012. He'd been diagnosed with schizophrenia. In past, he'd gone AWOL twice while on accompanied passes at CAMH, but returned voluntarily. In May, the board deemed him a significant threat to public safety. Police say they don't know how he went missing yesterday, but they found him about 8 hours later.
You really wonder how someone can get on a plane when Jamie yourself or myself can't even bring, 2 ounces of liquid on.
The incident comes just weeks after Zibin Kong left CAMH on an unaccompanied pass and got on an international flight. In 2014, he killed his roommate with a meat cleaver and was found not criminally responsible. Police didn't notify the public of his disappearance for 11 days. Today, politicians called for an investigation into the incidents.
But people have dropped the ball, and we have to correct this issue. It's kind of nerve-wracking for a lot of people out in Toronto.
I just think that kind of overarching review would be the responsible thing to do, to be able to say to the public, every question that should be asked was asked, every question was answered.
Police are still working to track down Kong. Meantime, they're reviewing what information should be given to the public when cases like this arise.
It's unfortunate that we've had 2 incidents in the last week, but this is something that Toronto Police, along with CAMH, are extensively working on, and will be revising and reviewing the current policies that we have on hand. CAMH didn't respond to our request for comment today, but after the incident earlier this month, they said they would be launching an internal review looking at the process of handing out privileges and passes, as well as adding extra staff and security to units where patients stay. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
The Toronto Parking Authority is halting its plans to build a parking lot after Mayor Tory asked it to reconsider in favor of building housing.
The principal focus should be on the affordable housing near transit, not on parking near transit. So it's one of those things where I just think this was a time to stop and reset.
The TPA wanted to build a Green Pea parking lot on Eglinton West at Caledonia, but voted today to have the city review its plans after the mayor's urging. Neighborhood advocates agree with Tory, saying they'd rather see the land turned into affordable housing. The land, shown here in this picture, currently contains two-story buildings and a single-family home. It is also about a half a kilometer away from the future Caledonia station. The station is set to open in 2 years and will connect with the Barrie GO train line and the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. And today's appearance likely to be the last time we'll see Mayor Tory in public for the next little while. He is having surgery on his injured Achilles tendon tomorrow at the Humber River Hospital. While the mayor is undergoing the procedure, Deputy Mayor Denzel Minnan-Wong will take over his duties. The mayor's office says Tory will not attend public events for up to 2 weeks. The mayor has injured his Achilles tendon 3 times in the last few years. And I know, Colette, the mayor does keep up a very busy schedule of events and public appearances, so it's nice he's got a nice stretch of weather to help with the recuperation.
Yes, it will be very comfortable if he wants to do a little bit of that outside. He can enjoy himself without the humidity. You know, at this time of year, it's not atypical to see that our record highs are right around 35 degrees or so, maybe a degree above or below, and that's the record for this date in history in 2012. The average high is 27.2, but we were unofficially a high of just 25.7 today. So yeah, we could round that up to 26 degrees, but just couldn't quite get to the average high. That's what we're looking at, these kind of comfortable conditions, and the dew points being low, so the moisture content in the air is a little bit on the low side. It's nice for a few days, and then things are certainly going to start to build as we get towards next weekend. So maybe that's when you want it to get a little more humid. The current temperatures, though, that's where we're sitting, right there in those mid-20s, right around the region. There's active weather to be found. It's into southwestern Ontario. Quite a few lightning strikes associated, in fact, with the storms that are pushing from Michigan into the Windsor area. We may still see a stray shower, isolated really, around the GTA popping up, but I'm just not really seeing much activity here, and it looks like things are going to be really winding down. So we get into a clearing trend overnight tonight. We only see a few clouds, start off tomorrow with all kinds of sunshine then, and again, maybe a few clouds building a little more into those afternoon hours, but quiet. The next really good chance of seeing some afternoon showers or thunderstorms would be into Thursday afternoon. So not in the morning hours, but did you see that little batch that just kind of wants to make its way around the Golden Horseshoe? Be somewhat isolated again, not much there, but that's something to think about for Thursday, just to kind of be prepared and take the umbrella off with you as you head to work. Overnight tonight, though, these are those lows, 14 to 15 degrees, so they're very seasonal and also very comfortable. And tomorrow afternoon, we really are just going to see the temperatures very similar to where they were today for our afternoon highs. It's Thursday that we start to warm up a little bit. Humidity comes up a little bit, nothing to be worried about. Friday, though, sunshine, humidity's going up, temperatures going up, so that by the time we get into the weekend, we're talking about the temperatures 30 or low 30s and feeling like the mid 30s, and then Sunday, likely some scattered showers coming into the picture as well, Mike.
Nicest stretch of weather I've seen in a bit. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's looking good. Nice summertime weather.
Thank you, Colette. If you're hesitant about heading into any bodies of water in your area to cool off this summer, you no longer have to be a scientist to make sure they're safe, thanks to some new portable water testing kits being distributed.
Lab testing isn't always as accessible, so we want to make sure that we're empowering people to get out there and do these tests. You know, it's not as expensive as doing official lab tests, and it also, again, brings people back to nature, back to their water, so they feel more engaged with it and feel like it's more important to take care of it.
A Canadian nonprofit called Water Rangers says anyone can monitor water quality with the new kits, even children. The test requires 2 people to test and record the water samples. Water Rangers provides online training to help testers understand basic water health, such as temperature, clarity, pH levels, and other factors. The hope is that the data collected with these citizen science test kits will help fill in any gaps in areas where data isn't available and to pinpoint areas in need of attention. Boris Johnson is set to become the next Prime Minister of Great Britain after the governing Conservatives announced today he will replace Theresa May as party leader. He'll be sworn in tomorrow and is vowing to move ahead with Brexit. Cameron McIntosh has more from London.
Tomorrow, Boris Johnson will walk through that door, the Prime Minister of a country deeply divided.
That Boris Johnson is elected as the leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party.
As unlikely a Prime Minister as Boris Johnson may have once seemed, today's result wasn't much of a surprise. Johnson has long been the Conservatives' loudest, brashest Brexiteer. After Theresa May's failures to get a deal passed, his insistence on leaving deal or not by October 31st resonated.
We're going to get Brexit done on October the 31st. We're going to take advantage of all the opportunities that it will bring in a new spirit of can-do.
As he spoke, outside, plenty of this.
We demand a people's vote.
Calls to hold an election before proceeding with Brexit.
Boris Johnson, not fit for public office.
0.3% of the population get a say in who the Prime Minister is. How is that democratic?
But also support from the heavily Conservative Leave side.
He is courageous. Okay, he has his own style, but he is somebody who wants to leave the European Union. I'm convinced of that.
Opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn tweeted this call for an election, vowing he'll call for a vote of non-confidence. Meanwhile, Johnson faces challenges within his own party. Several key ministers have resigned. Not everyone in his government is confident in potentially crashing out of the European Union.
There is a clear majority in the House of Commons that doesn't want to leave the EU without a deal.
I have always had grave concerns about leaving the EU without a deal in place.
His opponent, Jeremy Hunt, called for the party to come together.
It's going to be very challenging, but he has got the confidence and the optimism and the energy to get us through this.
And today,
a newspaper wrote Johnson faces the most daunting challenges of any modern incoming Prime Minister.
Well, I look at you this morning and I ask myself, do you look daunted? Do you feel daunted?
Johnson is talking about a new age of British confidence, although his plans are lacking details, at least publicly. Regardless, tomorrow he'll meet with the Queen and accept what he's long coveted, the keys to that door. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, London.
We will always sell more alcoholic drinks than non-alcoholic drinks, but the people who come here for placebos are generally very excited about it.
Shaking up sobriety. A Toronto bar is serving up what it calls placebo cocktails, non-alcoholic drinks for a clientele that increasingly wants the social aspect of going out, but not the hangover. We'll bring you that story after the break. A former violin teacher has been convicted of sexually assaulting young students a year after he was acquitted of dozens of those charges. Today, the Ontario Court of Appeal found a judge had previously erred in Claude Tracy's case. Lisa Shing has the details and reaction from one of his victims.
This spring, former violin and viola teacher Claude Tracy avoided media as he left an appeal hearing at the Ontario Court of Appeal, launched after a judge acquitted Tracy of dozens of sexual assault-related charges. Today, as a 3-judge panel overturned some, issuing convictions, at least one of the victims was relieved.
We were heard, and that, what we had to say obviously matters, because it did not matter to this other judge.
Court documents reveal several incidents date as far back as 40 years when the now middle-aged women were teens and students of his. During violin and viola lessons, he touched and measured their breasts after asking them to remove their blouses and bras. He had some play exposed. One of the women, who can't be identified because of a publication ban, says it's had a big effect on her life.
I have personally gone through some healing through counseling and recognizing what in fact happened to me all those years ago, and coming to grips with how it's affected how I've raised my children, how I've had relationships in the past.
During the trial, Tracy argued what he did wasn't sexual. He was measuring them for violin shoulder rests. The decision released today show he's now convicted on most of the sexual assault and indecent assault charges. The acquittals still stand on the sexual exploitation and interference charges. The reason being, the trial judge said there was no sexual purpose to what Tracy did, but the appeal judges argue there doesn't need to be sexual purpose for it to constitute sexual assault. They also noted the girls were too young to consent, and Tracy did not measure any of his male students nor his daughter, who was also a student.
We're all stronger women because of what we've been through. It's the best outcome that we could have had. It will set the precedence for a lot of things moving forward.
She's hoping her story will help more women feel comfortable coming forward. Tracy will now head back to court for sentencing. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
A Toronto bar is trying to capitalize on a social media trend. Patrons proudly proclaiming on social media that they're easing up on the alcohol, but don't want that to limit their fun night on the town. Cass Rusi explains.
This is the spiced Apache.
Looks like the real deal. At this Toronto watering hole, mocktails are on the menu, or placebo cocktails, as they're called here.
We will always sell more alcoholic drinks than non-alcoholic drinks, but the people who come here for placebos are generally very excited about it.
In the face of a drinking culture, some young adults are going sober, or at least cutting down on the booze.
The whole idea about the placebo program is to integrate those drinks within the menu so people won't be pointed out as, oh my God, you're not drinking. Because that all of a sudden kind of segregates that particular clientele.
On social media, established campaigns like Dry January and Sober October making way to postings about sober curious and mindful drinking.
If you choose not to imbibe, why is that experience lessened because of the removal of alcohol?
Even if your drinking doesn't land you in hospital, the health incentives to quit or at least cut back are real. Alcohol, after all, is a carcinogen and increases the risk of cancer, liver, and heart disease. One recent study says that cutting booze may actually improve mental well-being. This researcher sees the value in campaigns that create an incentive for people to stop or at least limit their drinking.
It isn't just automatic, it isn't just about price and availability and policy, and it's people see in their daily lives some of the harms, how it affects people they love, how it affects themselves.
I'm drinking, I think it's called the Dark Dawn.
At the Pretty Ugly Bar, patrons Ryla Parker and Graham Gibb, self-professed social drinkers, are giving placebo drinks a shot.
You still get to hang out, you still get to see each other, but you don't have that pressure of, oh, the only option we have is alcohol.
Mocktails in the evening, minus the headache in the morning. Cass Rusi, CBC News, Toronto.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX was up by over 53 points. The Dow Jones was also up by 177. And the Canadian dollar traded for an average of just over 76 cents US. We'll be right back.
Away they go, the women's 100 backstroke final.
Some great news for Canada today from the World Aquatic Championships in South Korea. Kylie Maas captured a gold medal in the 100-meter freestyle event. Sophia Yurkshevich of CBC Sports is at the championship with more on a strong day for Canadian swimmers.
The 2017 world champion has done it again as Kylie Maas takes home the gold in the women's 100-meter back with a time of 58.60, and in the process gives Canada their 7th medal here at the 2019 FINA World Championships. Now, Maas has been completely dominant in this discipline as of late. As I mentioned, she was the world champion in 2017, of course, this year, and in 2018 at the Pan Pacifics as well as the Commonwealth Games. She also took home gold in this discipline. In Rio 2016, she was the bronze medalist, and you can bet that she'll be looking for gold in Tokyo 2020, pending qualification. Meanwhile, Taylor Ruck, in her very first World Championships of her young career, placed just off the podium in the 4th position. And finally, Penny Oleksiak qualified for the finals in the women's 200-meter free. She's looking for her first world's medal in this discipline, but already has one this year as she was part of that team that won bronze in the women's 4x100-meter freestyle relay earlier in the week. Sophia Yurkshevich, CBC Sports.
And you can stream those races on cbcsports.ca. Now, you heard Sophia mention the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo. Well, they start 1 year from tomorrow. And the International Olympic Committee says Tokyo is on track to deliver the Games on time.
We're very pleased that the delivery of the Games remains firmly on track. We received key updates here on the venue construction, and there's only 3 venues that remain to be completed.
Over 3 million tickets were sold across Japan last month. That surprised organizers. And more than 200,000 people have applied to be volunteers at the Games. Tomorrow, the designs for the game's medals and the official countdown clock will be unveiled. And we will have more on the one-year Olympic countdown for you tomorrow. Of course, CBC is Canada's official Olympic and Paralympic broadcaster. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, Colette is back again, talk about the weather again, and this is nice and pleasant. People should be happy. It's, you know, no complaints about the weather right now.
Yeah, I'm not hearing very many.
No.
And believe me, I often do. So yeah, things have been pretty nice in terms of that humidity has really backed off for us, and you're going to find stays comfortable for a couple of days yet. So if you're enjoying it, we got more of this to come. Overnight tonight, we're looking at mostly clear skies, 15 degrees for the overnight low, and that wind coming in, not very strong, but coming in from the north. It'll be fairly light through the day tomorrow as well. Lots of sunshine to start the day off. A few clouds building into the afternoon hours, but the high 26 degrees, just a tiny bit below seasonal. And Mike, then the trend is really going to be that each day after that, it gets a little warmer, and the humidity slowly comes up towards the weekend.
Nothing like last weekend again, but it'll warm up a little bit more.
Yeah, especially towards the weekend.
Thanks a lot, Colette. That's our show tonight. Thanks for joining us. Tally Ricci has next news at 11.